Good afternoon. I'm Terry Goldberg. I'm the Executive Director of the Northeast Waste Management Officials Association, or NWMOA, and I want to welcome you to today's webinar. The topic is going to be food waste reduction strategies and tools for businesses and institutions. We're really excited to be offering this webinar today and having so many of you join us. I'm joined for facilitating this webinar by my colleague, Lynn Rubenstein, who's with the Northeast Recycling Council. I will be doing introductions to get us going, and then Lynn will be facilitating the Q&A session that we'll have in about an hour. Just a few logistics before we get started. I wanted to recognize our sponsors for today's webinar. Vanguard Renewables and Quantum Biopower have been generous in providing financial support and sponsorship for this webinar, and we really greatly appreciate their support for this and other webinars that NWMOA and NERC have been holding this year. We are recording this webinar today. We will be posting the recording of the webinar as well as the PowerPoint slides, both on NERC's website and NWMOA's website as soon as we can. I can assure you that NERC will be faster at posting the material than NWMOA. It's been our history. And so, you know, I'd say in another day or so, check out our websites if you want to see the recording or get access to the slides. We want all of you to be sharing questions throughout the webinar. To post questions, please look on your GoToWebinar control panel. And there's toward the bottom of the panel, there are a number of gray rows. There's one that says questions. If you look on the right side of that row, you'll see a square with a dash through it. If you click on that square, you will it will enlarge the question feature, and you can type your question or your comment there. We expect to have a lively interaction with our panelists at the end of the webinar. We hope to have about a half an hour for that with your questions and their answers. So we're looking forward to that. If you want to use the chat feature, please just do that if you're having any kind of technical difficulty that you want to make us aware of. So we will be monitoring the questions throughout the webinar. And again, we urge you to post your questions as the presentations proceed. So I'm going to introduce our panel today. We're really excited to have these two panelists with us. We think they're going to be great. First, we have Corianne Mansell. She is the Client Services Strategist at the Center for Ecotechnology, or CET. She supports CET's wasted food solutions efforts by leading stakeholder engagement processes and providing on-site technical assistance to businesses and institutions. She currently serves as chair for the Outreach Committee for the Young Professionals of the U.S. Composting Committee and the chair for the Education and Outreach Committee for the New Jersey Composting Council chapter. She has a bachelor's degree in environmental policy and a bachelor's in planning and public policy from Rutgers University, and a certificate in sustainable business from the McIntyre Business Institute. So Corianne will be up first, and then she'll be followed by John Short, who is an experienced account executive with a career in matching SaaS solutions to common business problems. Driven by sustainability, technology, and community, he takes pride in meeting as many professionals as possible to discuss reducing food waste. When he's not working on food waste reduction for food, or PHOOD, he enjoys skiing, biking, fishing, and spending time with his dog. So he's going to be enjoying watching Lynn's dog as well today.
And hopefully listening to it.
So I'm going to turn over the presentation to Corianne, and she's going to take it away. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, are you seeing the correct screen and hearing me?
Yes, looks good. Yes, looks good. There you go.
Okay. All right, so thank you for having me today. As noted, I'm Cori Mansell, the Client Services Strategist at the Center for Ecotechnology, and today I will be speaking on the business case for reducing surplus food. For context, our organization is the Center for Ecotechnology, or CET for short, which is a nonprofit that helps people and businesses save energy and reduce waste. And for over 40 years, we've been helping businesses and institutions implement programs on the ground, while also contributing to and implementing effective public policy on these efforts. Partnerships are critical to making this impact happen. Listed here are some of the government agencies, utility companies, and foundations that we partner with to make this environmental change happen. And I do want to particularly thank Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, Environmental Protection Agency, USDA, Rhode Island DEM, Department of Environmental Management, and many others that are currently supporting our efforts across the Northeast, helping businesses and institutions implement programs to reduce, recover, and otherwise divert wasted food. I know this slide may be very familiar to attendees, but I do want to emphasize the importance of reducing our wasted food. So I'll quickly note that up to 40% of our food produced in the US that is intended for consumption is not eaten. And this equates to about 20 pounds of food per person each month. And at the same time, Americans across the country are facing food insecurity. So at the end of the day, in addition to the need in our community, food that is produced not eaten, it costs us money, and also food that's produced and disposed of in the trash impacts our environment. All right, the screen disappeared for a second. Our organization works across the EPA food recovery hierarchy. And so we work with solution providers to offer source reduction technologies to organizations, to also organics haulers that are working with compost sites. And so we're facilitating connections between those with surplus and those that can manage it and provide a solution and create resources that are going to support long-lasting partnerships. I'm excited to focus on our source reduction efforts, particularly today, because we know that prevention helps us avoid paying for food twice, once when it's coming in the door and then once it's going out the door as well. So how can we look to prevention strategies? Since 2013, when we launched our Wasted Food Solutions program, we've been able to help reduce, recover, and divert wasted food from disposal, helping our communities, our environment, and our collective bottom lines. Noted earlier, again, we're not a solution provider, so while we're not a food rescue organization, composter, etc., we are able to provide tailored recommendations to businesses and institutions, and also support those solution providers implement programs with their current or potential customers. We meet businesses and institutions where they are. So in eligible states, we offer opportunities for our no-cost waste assistance, a vital piece to our services. We can meet with these entities in person or use Zoom, FaceTime, or other virtual platforms to conduct walkthrough assessments of a facility, a kitchen, or an office building. And this leads to the measurable impact with literal tons out of food waste out of the waste stream. Because following our assessments, we develop customized recommendations for the businesses and institutions that includes recognition of what's already happening and what's already working well, with other opportunities to prevent, recover, and divert waste. Then with that, we're also going to incorporate the tailored list of solution providers and best practices for moving forward, and the training resources to encourage those long-lasting programs. From a sustainability, from a multifaceted perspective, right? Thinking about what's going to help our bottom lines, what's going to work well within the community, and then also what's going to make an environmental impact. So I did want to encourage folks to reach out to us if this is of interest. We also offer a number of workshops on a number of topics for a number of sectors. And here's a screenshot of some of our recent workshops. These workshops do vary in structure and can include stories from peers to highlighting best practices for implementing programs across the hierarchy, as well as breakout groups for more in-depth discussions and assistance. Now I'll transition to speaking about a few of the stories of businesses that we've helped to implement source reduction programs or further the sustainability goals. So first and foremost, we recently worked with Openog Brewery, which is a brewery and tap room in Warwick, Rhode Island, and we helped them further their sustainability goals as the brewery immediately recognized the financial and environmental value in prioritizing prevention initiatives at their brew pub. So for instance, when the COVID pandemic hit, Openog staff were able to shop in the kitchen for food and supplies to prevent these items from going to waste. And this is an effective strategy that the brewery employed at a number of times throughout the pandemic when there was a pause in operations, and reinforced a culture that really values its employees. They also implemented a shelf where staff can take food from during the week to reduce the waste that wasn't being utilized in the kitchen. And then also surplus that was not being utilized by the staff was then also further directed to food rescue agencies. Informal discussions with employees really highlighted the value of Openog's appreciation for their employees. So that's one business case for reducing food waste, is looking at the community even within your operations. They also launched an experiment to track the waste from French fries. And so when they were bringing the plates back with the surplus French fries from their tables and from their customers, they were putting them in a separate container just for a visual effect of how much French fries were being wasted on a daily to weekly basis. And with this experiment, it really helped also further recognize, oh wow, we can be reportioning these sizes. How can we be reducing that waste, since we now know and see that we can reduce how many French fries we're giving to our customers. And similarly, they thought about that in the same way when thinking about the extra sauces or extra napkins, things that really they're going to still provide to their customers, but not in an abundance, really looking at it from a more of an ask perspective. And then Moosey, which is a restaurant in Philadelphia, is making would-be wasted food into a delicious menu and delicious entrees. So Moosey was a business that we worked with in partnership with the city of Philadelphia and through our co-developed food waste business challenge. And when peeling their produce, they actually saved the scraps or would-be scraps for their dehydrator that helps dry the peels that can be turned later into a powder. So for instance, turning onion skins into onion powder. Another example is utilizing herb stems into a more like a pesto herb sauce, and then also using some of the fruit pits and centers to dye their custards and sauces for their desserts, which was really innovative and exciting, both in a practical means of how can you extend the life of the produce that's coming in the door, but also from a exciting menu planning opportunity. And we note this when we're thinking about the customers that are coming in the door. Some might be just coming in the door because they're excited by the menu, while others might be more driven to this entity because of their sustainability mindset and how they're thinking about the produce that's coming in their door. I'll also tell the story of University of Massachusetts Amherst, which has been using LeanPath, which is a system that helps commercial kitchens track and analyze their wasted food. And as a result, they determined that their pre-consumer waste was roughly equal in result from trim waste and overproduction. So it upgraded their lean path system to incorporate photos as well. And this was helped have a visual representation of what was being wasted, as well as quantifying, where there's opportunities. And with these visuals, staff were encouraged to share their ideas and to think creatively. So for instance, dining halls are now using pineapple cores for infusing their water, bones for stock, and also cucumber cores that were left over from sushi into cucumber lemonade. In addition, seeing the trim waste allowed chef to determine whether there was opportunities for re-education and reassessment of what can be utilized in the kitchen. And with these strategies, UMass Dining saved over $700,000 in 3 years, which, thinking about that business case when we're thinking about finances, that certainly are impactful numbers and something that we really want to highlight there. And also noted here is the overall food waste went down to 9%, which in comparison to the national average, which is 15%, that's a notable reduction, and also something that they can tout to their future students or to their faculty, that they're really prioritizing source reduction and also looking across the hierarchy. In addition, North is a 50-seat restaurant in downtown Providence, and they're also using creativity in their kitchen to prevent wasted food. And so at a glance, they might actually have more prep waste as they try and utilize full kitchens, chickens, and full sheep on a regular basis, as well as taking in whole produce as well, as they don't get the pre-cut veggies per se. So here's another instance of a restaurant that is looking at prevention strategies. So they're using peels to make more vinegar-based sauces, and such as ginger peels into a vinegar or a dressing for their salads. And then also further going beyond that by also sometimes using more advanced technologies that are fermenting the vinegars to create such items such as strawberry vinegar from the strawberry tops. And they also make kombucha in-house, and we heard from customers and from a recent presentation that they provided that they also see this as a value add and exciting kind of wow factor for their customers. So they were featured actually in a workshop we organized for University of Rhode Island for the Food Systems Summit, and is available on our website if you'd like to learn more about what they're doing in their kitchen. We also worked with Jungle Jim's International Market, which is a full-service grocery store located in Ohio that actually operates 2 storefronts. It's about 500,000 square feet and spans more than 100,000 products. And so for over 35 years, Jungle Jim's has maintained a reduced produce section that includes marked down produce, deli items, meat items, bakery, as well as that fresh produce. And this section is frequented by many and also utilized by all of the departments across their operations. So it attracts customers that are seeking bargains, as well as to chefs that are looking for products that can be prepared and served the same day. When we did a tour of their facilities, we heard firsthand from one of the chefs that was looking and shopping in the reduced section is that that's where they went for their avocados or those items that they really want fresh day of. And then also within this reduced deal section, you find a variety of products that was really creative, and I know that there are a number of supermarkets in the Northeast that are utilizing these sections, and I'll speak to my own personal experience as a customer. That's one of my favorite sections to go to in the grocery store when they're available. And as I noted, this is a value add to their customers, but also Jungle Jim's market recognizes that they were really interested in also how it was reducing the waste that was potentially going out the door and potential for lost revenue. So here they saw that the department typically breaks even or actually turns a profit. So some, hesitations might be, oh, well, how can I have a reduced produce section as well as my own, at sale items? Well, it's really a both sector, both opportunities. You'll just be driving more sales and also reducing that food loss. We also helped the supermarket further their sustainability efforts to incorporate a new strategy to repurpose packaging. So they were getting a lot of empty, or ending up with a lot of empty pickle buckets. And we were able to make a connection to Earth Peak Organics, which implements a household food scraps recycling program. So that this is providing an opportunity to have the pickle buckets as a secondary life to those buckets. And so it's an environmentally friendly practice as well as a dual purpose solution. University of Rhode Island is also a leader in sustainability. So they implemented trayless dining, which resulted in a dramatic cost in food waste, but also they noted that they saved about 300,000 gallons in water without having to wash the trays. They also set up platforms on their menu to deal with the waste that, if what might be perceived as waste, into more of leftovers or incorporate it into their menu planning. So for example, if they have Canadian bacon in the morning, that could be transferred over to their pizza station and turned into Hawaiian pizza. And if they have leftover sausage in the morning, that can be from the omelet station can be transferred to more of a topping or something else later in the day. And they found also, I wanted to note that in addition to their source reduction strategies, they also noticed that on their campus, there were students that were facing food insecurity. And so here they implemented a program where students could donate a meal from their meal plan to another student, or within the kind of this center bank, so that they can help facilitate more folks that might not be able to go into the cafeteria as often as others. And then also we helped further their food rescue or partners by partnering with entities such as My Elijah's Project and others to serve that surrounding community with their surplus edible food. Now I'll take a few minutes to highlight some of the best practices that we've seen and commonly recommended in general to businesses and institutions that are looking at preventing food waste. So for instance, food waste estimation tools such as the one that we developed for Recycling Works, which is a free recycling assistance program that we administer under contract by Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, can be a good first step for a business or institution. You can estimate food waste by the factors such as the size of container and frequency of pickup for your trash, number of meals served, number of students, number of full-time employees, etc. And the intention of these estimation tools is to kind of set the stage for what might be wasted at your operations. It does not take into effect what other prevention strategies you already have in place for donation, but it does help you kind of set that baseline, as it can be hard to set a goal or know your regulatory requirements without a starting point. Another way to understand quantity and type is to do an audit of actual total waste. So food waste audits can be conducted in a number of ways, including visual snapshots to more comprehensive services, and they can also be quite helpful in pinpointing where there's areas of opportunities. We can also acknowledge that food loss comes from a variety of factors, from trim waste, misshapen products, spills, spoilage, production line changes, contamination, overproduction, order changes, shifts in consumer demand, improper labeling, the list just goes on and on. And so on average, food restaurants or food permitted businesses spend $500,000 a year on food purchasing. And with a shift in purchasing practices, your business could potentially save $20,000 on an annual basis. And so that's a huge savings when we think about it. And of course, every business is going to be individual, and there's going to be unique cases for all. But from a broad picture standpoint, that's big. And let's do what we can to pinpoint, as I said, those areas of opportunities. In addition, when we're thinking about that cost savings, I noted earlier in the presentation, you're paying for it to come in the door, and if you're wasting it, then you're essentially paying for it twice. And that's also where we can look to opportunities for cost neutrality or savings as well when you're incorporating that material that was previously in your trash and is now going to a more beneficial use. The EPA also has a printable waste logbook that includes food type, loss reason, and other information that can be used to identify trends and take corrective action. And these logs can be very helpful to understand, was it poor storage? Is there something with the equipment that we have in our kitchen that needs to be fine-tuned or evaluated? And so we saw actually, with the use of a log or similar technology or kind of evaluation strategy, a manufacturer noticed that they were actually wasting some of the prepackaged meat items because there was a system that wasn't properly in place, where some of the labeling wasn't up to spec. And when it was just happening on a routine basis, but once you take a step back, pause momentarily, look at what the trends are, you can really kind of implement changes right then and there. Understanding where your food waste, your waste is coming from can help your business identify ways to focus on ordering practices and cut back on costs. I won't spend too much time here because I know we'll be hearing from food shortly, but food waste tracking software such as LeanPath, Winnow, and Food can really help businesses collect data on wasted food and better identify areas for cost savings. I noted some strategies that can be incorporated earlier, but as a refresher, there are other food preparation strategies that can also reduce waste, such as incorporating root to stock cooking, which is using the entire vegetable, along with nose to tail cooking, which is using the entire animal. That's thinking about how can we make utilizing the bones to make soups and broths, which gives that food a second life. Then also cutting food uniformly can help prepare the meal and vegetables evenly, and then repurposing surplus food or food items into other products. A common one that I'm sure most of us are familiar with is using overripe bananas for banana bread. But when looking even within a restaurant or an institutional kitchen, there are definitely strategies such as that can be adopted. And then also another one that we definitely like to note, maybe more so from a personal bias, but the avoiding garnishes that we're not going to really eat, and those small tweaks can make big substantial change. And also we've seen, as I noted from the stories earlier, with this creative thinking, you're also engaging your employees and also asking them to share their opinions, share their thoughts on how we can be giving a second life to this food that might be surplus. For many institutions, tools like production sheets and menu planning software can also be very helpful. So production sheets will compare number of meals prepared and served to number of uneaten meals. And then commercial software such as Seaboard can also help quantify the food ordering accuracy. I also note here cycling menus, if possible, can maybe simplify ordering and purchasing noting that, of course, there's going to be some specialty items and other items that might not be able to be cycled through. So our Wasted Food Solutions website offers a wealth of information where folks and attendees can dig in further. We have resources such as best practices for source reduction. We also have those case studies that I noted earlier, recordings of our workshops, and also a link to our no-cost technical assistance, which I do encourage attendees to consider, whether you already have a program in place and you're looking at how we can fine-tune it, or if you want to just know what your options may be, we're more than happy to help. And I do want to thank the organizers, NERC and NMOA, for having me speak today. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you so much, Corey Ann.
And just a quick reminder to be sure to post your questions in the question box. Thank you. And thank you, Corey Ann.
So our next presenter should be gearing up. John?
Yep. Apologies, give me 1 second, just loading my screen. All right. Can you guys hear me and see my screen okay?
Looks good. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I greatly appreciate the introduction. And before we begin, I just wanted to take a moment to thank Terry and NUMOA, Lynn, NERC, as well as Corey and CET for co-hosting this event and for the chance to speak today. Today, I'll be building from Corey's presentation to discuss artificial intelligence and how it is used to further our knowledge of food waste and overall reduction of food waste. From there, I'll discuss how AI is leveraged both in managing consumer-facing food waste as well as food waste in other sectors. I will end with an analysis of food and the impact that we provide using our solution to drive changes in businesses' behavior and victories as well as challenges that companies face in regards to making these large-scale adjustments to their operations. But first, I want to start with a little quick introduction to myself. I'm originally from Oakland, California, and I also spent some time growing up in northern New Jersey before attending the University of Pittsburgh. And after graduating, I've stayed here in the city of Pittsburgh. Food has always played a large role in my family, as both of my parents love to cook and love fresh ingredients. From an early age, I began to deep sea fish, and learning to process the fish we caught was my first exposure to the full cycle of food production, or what I like to call ocean to table. And here's me as a younger man on a fishing trip with my family. And although we still go 2 to 3 times yearly, I enjoy looking back on this photo as it is beautiful and off the coast of California for any fishermen in the region. We were heading to the Farallon Islands outside of San Francisco. But moving on, in my backyard in New Jersey, my mom built a DIY composting pile and encouraged me to throw in eggshells, peels, and other organic matter to help. So fighting food waste has always been a passion of mine, and I was lucky enough to begin right at home. Years later, I'm blessed to introduce people to what I call modern day food waste fighting and work in the field of sustainable technology here with food. So I wanted to start with a quote actually from Alan Turing. The original question, can machines think, I believe to be too meaningless to deserve discussion. Nevertheless, I believe that at the end of the century, the use of words and general educated opinion will have altered so much that one will be able to speak of machines and thinking without expecting to be contradicted. I really like that one by Alan Turing because the concept for artificial intelligence can actually originally be traced back to Turing and the Hodgkin-Huxley model for neural networks, which was developed all the way back in the 1950s. AI has gone through many developments over the years, and thanks to a boom in technology in the 1990s, it now plays a very important role in the operations of companies across various industries. So today, a lot of you may know examples of AI, such as intelligent robots like the Terminator in movies, shopping assistants such as Alexa or Google Home, Siri, and even internet ads that seem to learn your every desires faster each day. And that's for a good reason. Artificial intelligence has developed practicing subsets such as computer vision and machine learning, which allows software to capture images and other data points to become more accurate at classifying the information based on the past, furthering its intelligence or learning. And this occurs on a magnitude too large and too quickly for humans to compete with, but it provides a broader set of data for us to analyze. And the ability for technology to learn from past data and predict future needs is exactly what companies use to improve their product offerings to us, the consumer. Thanks to advances in technology, we have become aware of the effects that mass production, and especially the mass production of food, have on our planet, as well as those who are food insecure in our communities. But in a lot of cases, our estimates are built from algorithms or equations and aren't actually based on data recorded from the source. So today, reducing food waste is one of our most actionable items in the fight against climate change. And the amount of overproduction directly affects the volume of transportation, handling, and distribution that occurs, which in turn carries an enormous footprint on our Earth. We can sequester these waste systems into digestible sectors so that we may begin to approach the problem consistently and apply those advances in technology that I reviewed and that we have available to fighting the occurrences of food waste. And this is broken down a little bit further here, obviously courtesy of ReFed. And while the scale of surplus food waste across the different sectors, such as farming, manufacturing, and in the home can be shocking and dehumanize this information, food waste occurs for very human reasons. I mainly want to focus today on where the overwhelming majority of waste occurs, or about 65%, which is after the point of reaching a consumer-facing business. As we see, consumer-facing businesses include retail, full-service restaurants, and other food service. And so this is a great place to apply AI technology to understand the volume of food waste and the human reasons that occur behind it in this industry. As you can see, consumer-facing businesses, as the ones I listed, obviously face consumers and people, so that those people demand a quality and variety of food that's available for consumption. And so those companies compete for customers and adhere to promises for fresh food, and all of that strains inventory management and food ordering, especially during demand fluctuations to large-scale global events such as COVID. Essentially, large organizations of this size, they don't have the realistic data available to make agile changes to these processes. And so there's an opportunity here for AI to deliver accurate data to the hands of those businesses to inform future decisions such as purchasing and inventory, as well as plan accordingly in order to minimize waste and maximize their overall profit. So just to recap, we've established that AI provides clean and accurate data applied to the field of food waste, and simply put, our technology is able to accurately and effectively capture that data and additionally classify that information with ever increasing accuracy thanks to developments like computer vision and machine learning. We can then use this data to make informed decisions across all sectors of food waste. And the potential return on investment for this technology is huge when the total value of surplus food is estimated to be in excess of $400 billion annually. I'll share the impact of food and AI on consumer businesses shortly, but here are a few unique examples in other sectors to show the reach of AI technology into this industry today. Strela Biotechnology is a company that uses AI to offer a biosensing platform that predicts the ripeness of produce in order to reduce waste and improve overall product quality. Right now, they monitor about 15% of the total US supply of apples, and obviously hope to expand there, as well as expand into tracking the ripeness of other comparable fruits and vegetables in storage facilities. Another example, Centaur Analytics, are using advanced sensors and AI to monitor grain storage bins and can analyze that data to prevent early spoilage and deterioration. Capabilities of the technology include running what-if scenarios on the varying grain moisture to determine the optimal storage conditions. While these examples are based in pre-consumer sectors, they still have an immediate impact on the quality and amount of food delivered to businesses. But as we know, obviously at the retail and consumer-facing business level, companies like food exist. So, Corey just presented on the EPA food recovery hierarchy, which is canon for consumer-facing businesses looking to best prioritize the diversion of food waste from trash. At the top of the hierarchy was source reduction, followed by different diversion destinations to avoid the landfill and prioritize food rescue, animal feed, and composting/recycling. Food's mission is source reduction. Our goal is to use our technology to reduce the volume of surplus food ever generated in the first place by capturing as much data at the source as possible. AI is at the core of our solution, as humans simply cannot keep up with tracking the volume of food produced and are especially unequipped to analyze that data to determine changes on an organizational level. But using AI technology at the source reduction level allows us to leverage that data to best inform every following step to ensure that the freshest prepared foods as possible are sent to food rescue partners and that leftover produce can be used for animal feed. So you might be wondering how food works. Our technology is deployed to different tracking devices such as FoodX, and using computer vision, we quickly capture accurate images of the food and track different data points such as weight, time, and the reason for recording, depending on what our clients do with that surplus food. That could be donation to food rescue agencies, like I said, or other diversion tactics. The machine learning component helps FoodX become more accurate at classifying those food items as the time goes on. And then food account managers use that data to consult with our clients and advise them on various improvements to overall reduce waste and maximize profit. Improvements such as analyzing the waste as a percentage of sales to prioritize serving the highest profit margin items first. Additionally, our process means that food items are tracked at the right time before being discarded in a waste bin, giving food account managers the opportunity to coach employees on giving the food items a second life via other preferred methods of recovering surplus food. And for a closer look at the process that I was describing, here's what FoodX looks like in use in the kitchen. Employees simply place the pan of food, in this case, delicious chicken tenders, on the device, and then they will follow a simple two-step process in which the employees choose the pan type, the image is captured and the item is identified as those delicious chicken tenders, and employees then select the reason for tracking, in this case, to serve or putting out or discarding and taking it away. From these simple steps integrated into steps already taken through in-house changes or by utilizing other partner technologies, we are able to expand on the known amount of food waste with each of our clients and begin to identify changes in behavior with them to minimize waste and maximize profit. And there are even a few others using iterations of AI to fight food waste, specifically on the prevention side in retail, grocery, and other consumer-facing businesses. And we at Food are proud to recognize these companies as part of a community of sustainable technology solutions. Too Good to Go, Shelf Engine, and Flash Food are examples of great solutions that are available out there that also help drive impact and analyze current operations in order to reduce and prevent food waste from occurring. So let's take a step back here and discuss some of the challenges that companies face today in reducing food waste and how AI and companies like Food help alleviate them. To start, quantifying the amount of food waste is a challenge in and of itself. It is simply occurring at such a volume that companies can't keep up. And we know that the reality is that not all of the data is being recorded or it fits into the algorithms to calculate the overall waste. Number two, complexities amongst each individual business mean different systems for ordering, tracking, waste collection, etc. And all of those systems must communicate with new technology and be digestible into action items for the employees. Number three, and for the employees themselves, keeping apprised of tools and technology available to fight food waste is a challenge. Any business has a myriad of other priorities, so keeping on top of this one can be especially difficult. And number four, issues in up and down the supply chain, such as labor. And these are obviously exacerbated by situations, as I mentioned, like COVID-19. And to solve these challenges, AI and food deliver, first and foremost, data. As aforementioned, decisions must be made from a place of knowledge in order to be effective at such a scale, and our technology delivers exactly the data that's needed. And that data is the catalyst for following things like food waste reductions, greenhouse gas emission reductions, and something we've discussed briefly before, but prioritizing the best case scenario for that surplus food that does occur. And part of that data importance is baked into our ethos as a company of food. The way that we roll out and the way that we work with companies is that we must understand what occurs in the first place to set a baseline in order to see those reductions and set goals with our clients. And so we lay out and we have a 90-day implementation in which we begin to capture all of the data possible as it occurs today. From there, we can begin to make those adjustments and consult with our clients in order to reduce on all of those action items that we laid out before. And some examples, obviously in retail, we have an overall average of 47% waste reduction, a 94% decrease in labor reduction, and an overall individual item profitability increase of 10%. In commercial kitchens, this looks like an average of a 42% waste reduction, and cost savings of $33,000 and 16,000 pounds of carbon dioxide prevented from entering the atmosphere. So ultimately, one thing I've learned working at food and with companies that produce food waste is that the true crux of our problem comes from a lack of granular information and data. And that's not our fault. Humans just are not equipped to handle the volume of food waste that occurs. And we must admit that there are more complications than ever, complications such as supply chain disruptions and labor shortages that companies must overcome in order to serve their customers. But the time is now to act and take those steps to reduce food waste. And these steps towards reducing food waste at the source have a great impact across an organization. A great place to start addressing the challenges that are still felt across a number of industries, including grocery, where we're doing a lot of work right now, is implementing a tracking process that utilizes advanced technology to capture clean and clear data at the source. This is where we invest our efforts in food and where we take real client feedback and turn it into impactful improvements to our technology. And I'm going to give you an example here of what that means. So one major grocery retail client of ours loved that our original implementation cut their 60-second process in about half to track food items, but they still wanted to give employees more time to handle all the other responsibilities that were lumped onto their plate due to labor shortages that they were facing. So we improved our overall tracking process to 5 seconds or less, relying on our classifying technology, and familiarized it to their menu offerings to drive a new two-touch process that works best for them and their team. This means that their employees are able to focus more of their attention on the myriad of other things going on around them while continuing to track surplus food in a process that is seamless to them and their day. And that's why we use AI, because we all know that you can't manage what you can't measure, and the first step is getting a little help along the way to achieving enough data to make impactful changes in our organizations. So with that, I will conclude my presentation and say thank you, and I look forward to any following questions. And I also encourage all of you, if you have any questions, to reach out or any further interest in food and source reduction technology. I'm always available and happy to consult with anyone. So with that, thank you again for your time.
Thank you both so much for those great presentations. Totally fascinating. Lots of good and juicy questions, which I'll start asking in a moment. But I think we'll have time for more. So go ahead, audience, and post them. So thank you. I learned a great deal. First, Corey Ann, a couple of questions about the UMass example that you provided. And I'm going to, oh, there you go. I was just going to say, let's see ya. Let me find that again. Thanks, John. So at UMass, did they change their purchasing practices or just the way they managed excess food and discards?
Yeah, it was a combination of all of the above. So that savings that I quantified, it was from that they did adopt a lean path source reduction technology that helped them capture photos of where items were being wasted, and then also change menus based on those findings. They also increased their food donation practices and their food rescue programs, and then they also adopted programs that would um, go trail. So they went trayless. For an example, they had small bites where students could grab, more small taste samplers so that they're not grabbing all of the food at once. And then they also redesigned their cafeteria to reduce lines so that when you get to the front of the line, you're not overzealous in taking all of the items to sample. Instead, you know that you can have time to go back and revisit if needed.
Panic eating.
Yes,
That's great.
I've experienced it before.
So with the cost savings that you articulated from UMass, did that account for any increased costs for staff time, or is it just from avoided disposal costs?
We do have a written case study on the UMass story, so I can share that with you to share with attendees. And because I'm not quite sure, we did have the contact that's quantified the practices that they implemented, and I will only say this anecdotally, but in the sense that it doesn't really increase employee time when you think about the managing of the full trash bags, or the fact that you'll need to scrape more plates if there's still a lot of food left over. So it's almost an equilibrium when thinking about the bigger picture.
That's interesting. Great. John, a simple question first. Is food only available in English? And is it only available in the US? So for example, our asker is from Quebec. Is this there in French?
That's a great question. So we're currently deployed across the United States, but we do have the ability, obviously, to provide food training materials in different languages that need to be consulted, and we can definitely ship to countries in North America like Canada. So yes, we definitely are available to consult there.
Great, thanks. Now, a less straightforward question for John. So a couple of people asked iterations of this, so I think you touched let's say nerve, not a negative way, but a curiosity nerve. You referenced labor savings, so labor reductions in retail establishments. So what would contribute to these large reductions in labor?
Yeah, so mainly the large reduction in labor is contributed to those clients that we see who already have a tracking process in place that is some method or combination of like an in-house practice, potentially using technology like a scan gun, but their entire process involves essentially writing that down manually somewhere to be kind of tracked and located or referenced in the future. And our process cuts down on that process itself, and there's a reduction on labor there. And drives everything into, as I mentioned, that 5-second tracking process to get the same amount of data and the same data points accessible and available to different team members.
Okay, well, that's very interesting because there was a question for Corianne that I think is sort of maybe the mirror side of this. So Corianne, you showed, and the person said it was an EPA form. I'm not sure it literally was, but there was that black and white thing with all the tracking stuff, which looks like an incredibly labor-intensive exercise for somebody or somebodies, let's say in a restaurant. So the question that was actually being asked was, how much work is that? I mean, do you need, does it take away from overall staff responsibilities? And now I'll add to that. So am I correct to draw a corollary between that example and what John was just saying about reduced effort from the staff?
Yeah, we frequently point to that EPA, it was an EPA waste log tool, as a way to do a snapshot view of what's happening on more so a weekly basis. So it's not it can be intended for a long-term, program to adopt, but it's also just a good way to, start the conversation around what items might be surplus within your operations. And with that information, you can kind of move forward from there to either recognize, oh, I would like to start a composting program and then work my way up the hierarchy. We've seen that way, or using that tool as also a way to just say, well, I'm not ready to implement a composting program, let's say, but here's that one common item that we're seeing, per this week that is we might have surplus on. Let's work on that first and then see where we go. And I do want to recognize, yes, it might be a stepping stone for those technology platforms such as food.
John, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, so I'd just add that technology platforms such as food, we work really hard to make our data offering in a format that's accessible to what happens internally. As I mentioned, businesses have different practices, based on each individual one on their combination of technology or what their reporting looks like. So we really consult with you, but export things in a CSV file so that you can use that data, accessibly and as needed. So I definitely agree with Corey that in situations like that EPA logbook, we have the ability to report on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis to seamlessly kind of integrate with what information you might be tracking on a broader scale as well, because we really focus on that granular level data, tracking those individual items so that you can compare and break down into kind of things like product mix forecasting and other features like that.
Great, thanks. So as you may be able to see from my picture, I think I'm about to have an eruption. I'm going to ask a question and put myself on mute that I think was for both of you. Could you provide a little bit more detail about the work you did at the grocery store? So Corianne, you presented first about a grocery store, so if you don't mind, let's hear from you. And then I would love to hear from John more of the specifics about the work that you've done at a grocery store. Thank you.
Sure. We have worked with grocery stores across the Northeast in a variety of ways. So first, I will just note that we have worked with regional chains as well as national chains, and then also more so the one-stop shop or the grocery stores that have a few locations. And with that information, the assistance that we can provide will meet the business where they are. And that includes the customized no-cost assistance, that includes the customized recommendations, the connections to solution providers, and then that roadmap for implementation. For Jungle Gyms in Ohio, we actually just finalized a case study on their experience and the programs that they're implementing. They already had their reduced deals section, produce section in place. So our assistance was looking at where can they go beyond those initial strategies, already robust program in place, and that's where we helped make that connection between, pickle buckets is a frequent item that is cannot be recycled in their traditional recycling program, but it can be reused with earth bioorganics, I want to say. And then also we are looking at, with that produce that is not being sold, there is still a percentage of that can go to more beneficial uses, such as anaerobic digestion or composting. So we are working with them to evaluate those opportunities as well.
Thank you. And John?
Yeah, so I'll start by kind of mirroring what Corey said again. We work with national grocery chains, enterprise level through mid-market to smaller grocery chains. And we really focus on those with what we call a propensity for fresh food. We like to essentially deploy our technology initially in prepared foods areas so that we can get a good baseline understanding in an area where our technology is best suited to capture some of those food items, those diverse food items. But that's also an area where a large amount of unknown waste occurs. And so it's a kind of a high impact area for those who do have a large propensity for fresh food. And then from there, we obviously unfurl into the other kind of departments within grocery stores that handle fresh food to establish tracking efficacy there. So yeah, we definitely work in addition to make that data relatable to what grocery stores might have questions about. So example would be relating waste as an overall percentage of sales dollars to those each individual items, so that again the grocery stores can understand per item movement to understand how their menu works in those prepared food areas, or kind of eliminate low moving, high waste items from their overall product mix, but begin to delve deeper into those potentially grocery specific areas that that need help and data insight that isn't there today.
Thank you. So let me just say, there was a request for Corianne's contact information, which I just put in the chat box, and I'm also going to put John's in there in a few moments. John, perhaps both of you, but this question popped up with Joe when you were speaking. It seems that carbon dioxide is being used most often in this webinar in terms of food waste reduction and climate change benefits. In the questioner's experience, methane is usually the highlighted greenhouse gas. Is carbon dioxide representing the emissions from waste transport or landfill off-gassing, or is it a equivalent and just a different measurement?
Truthfully, I'd have to go back to our case study. I'd be happy to follow up on that question, kind of by email or post up a follow up, but I have to compare, obviously with methane to carbon dioxide. So, just would love to follow up on that question, after the webinar.
Okay, and I don't know, Corianne, if you have any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I feel as though in some of the case studies that I shared, there were some data points, and we do have more case studies online that go through a little bit more of the data behind these findings and comparisons. So if folks have questions, we would be happy to talk with you, and we can also assess what might be applicable for your operations or what sort of data you're looking for. And I did include my corrected email address.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Sorry. That was my fault. Bad typing. So that you get a double whammy though, because now people have to look twice. So that's good. Okay, John, what is the time frame once somebody implements your technology for somebody to start seeing savings, and what are the startup costs?
Yes, that's a great question. So initially, the time to track, we like to say, is from day one. So our solution is sent out as a plug and play device, meaning that generally in implementation and kind of pre-deployment, we work with you to understand what your menu offerings are, so that when you receive the technology, it's able to begin recognizing those offerings immediately. We then break that down into a 90-day trial period. At the 45-day mark is when we begin to review those initial cost savings as it pertains to obviously engagement with the system, tracking accuracy, and a couple other of those KPIs that we established during that implementation and that 90-day trial. So, really at the 45-day mark is when we begin working to kind of highlight what those cost savings can be, but they can be identified from as early as day one, and the first week as you pour over those kind of individual data reports on each item and its waste as a percentage of sales. And then to speak to the second part of the question, actually our 90-day trial is completely cost-free to our clients. So we obviously unveil and unroll at no cost in order to begin to integrate with your company and kind of the products that you offer. And then after that, our offerings start at $525 a month for the FoodX device.
Great, thank you. Corianne, this is all very wonderful work you're both talking about, but how do you get a business interested in food waste reduction?
Well, when we look at the benefits of implementing these programs, we mirror that to the motivating factors. So a business might approach us from an environmental standpoint. They want to further their sustainability goals, or they heard from their peers that there's opportunities for cost savings. Who doesn't want a cost savings within their waste bills? You know, I can't guarantee that savings, but we're happy to look to opportunities that could potentially look at even a cost neutrality and still putting that waste to a higher beneficial use. And then also, some businesses approach us not necessarily from a, I want to adopt a source reduction program or composting, but I know that I have continued surplus and I would like to be connected with my community, who are the food rescue organizations and food banks that I can be working with. So we're really getting all perspectives here. We are working across the Northeast, so there are other motivators such as the organics waste ban or organics recycling law in certain states, such as in Massachusetts. We do have the organic waste ban, as well as in Connecticut, there's the commercial organics recycling law and other factors that do play into the picture when thinking about why do I want to implement a program. However, we have seen folks that implement a program from no, I need to abide by the applicable organics recycling law, but then also come back and say, wow, I didn't realize that when you see it in a different bin, or when you start quantifying that waste in a different way, you really open your eyes to the other opportunities again across that hierarchy. And then of course we do host workshops and do direct outreach to start the conversation. Some folks know that this is something that they'd like to put on their bucket list but don't know where to begin, and that's where we can come in and really provide that support as needed.
That's great, thank you. John, do you have anything a different or additional or a different or additional perspective you would want to provide to that?
Yeah, I'd say the additional perspective that I'd like to provide is that, solutions like what Corey's presenting and technology such as food are there to help. And so that's an often point when I'm speaking with prospective clients, is just learning what their problems are, learning how we can match that ability to quickly capture that data to what the organization does. And so, when they see that it can be a seamless integration into what they do today, but the data that it provides, oftentimes, that is kind of the catalyst for a further agreement, for understanding of the impact of food. And so they see where they can take those areas for improvement, also with working with our account managers, to just adjust at their pace internally as well. So really, I think it's an instance of being in an area where there's a lot of mounting public pressure to make changes based on the impact that we're beginning to understand. So I would lastly say that often our clients love the fact that they can speak to the steps that they're taking to be a leader in sustainability and to reduce their overall food waste at the source. So those are major benefits that they see, and I think reasons why they look at technology like this today and other solutions like this today.
Great, thank you both. Do either of you see institutions or restaurants changing their menus as a result of your work? So you both spoke about changing or reflecting on the cost of purchasing, the amount of waste, new ways to use wasted or previously wasted food, but do you actually see menus being redesigned?
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry.
We do, in the sense that if it's a restaurant, so Appanog, for instance, maybe it's not taking off specific menu items, but reorganizing them with the French fry, for example, less French fries, or the shared plates, and looking at the ramekins that have the sauces, how many are really being utilized, and then also with those large institutions, they do change, from more of the buffet style to transition that to more the tasting menus, the samples. I know, again, as a consumer, I know I've approached a dessert table and there's a full piece of cheesecake, a chocolate cake, what have you, and you want to try them all, but if you can just have bite-sized pieces of that, you're going to end up reducing waste there and also saving money for the institution. And John, I think you had
I
some.
keep trying to prevent you all from enjoying the barking, and then you don't hear me being delightful. I was just going to say you're making me incredibly hungry. John, you started saying that yes, you've seen changes. What would be some examples?
Absolutely. So I think there's definitely changes, like, for our retail grocery clients, they look at, especially the larger ones, look at kind of the data on a broader scale to understand what those high moving and low moving items are, and then take those off. I think one of my favorite examples is kind of like a spinach kale scramble that, after our technology was deployed, I think might have been a chef's favorite, but not necessarily a crowd favorite, because the waste percentage of sales was astronomical. And so, I think that's a great example of a real life situation in which, that large enterprise retail grocer had to take a real life look and say, okay, A, how is this menu item performing? But B, what does menu cohesion look like across our different locations? And so, we definitely see that too in terms of menu items and planning, in which, across different locations, people can prioritize and kind of standardize what's offered and then track its performance accordingly to build that overall kind of bigger data picture. But outside of just production or kind of ordering, I would say that one of the biggest things is production in the first place. So, we like to segment a little bit further. As we know, you can change your ordering, and I think that's just a step further back. Oftentimes, people see the data, and the first step is just changing how much they produce on a day-to-day or week-by-week basis. And then, kind of changing what those offerings are as they start to see improvements and changes to their company based on, integral steps to their process like that.
Right. Now, do you guys also see, in addition to menu changes, have you succeeded in getting smaller portions offered? Not just nibbles, but like I order a meal and I actually get less so that there's less likely to be waste on my plate.
Yeah, it does happen. It's a variety of strategies, and again, understanding that every operation is going to have their own, best practices and what they'd like to adopt. But we have seen folks serve less French fries because they know that that's not necessarily something that their customers are taking home with them, but they are leaving them behind, as well as looking at. There are restaurants, when you provide complimentary bread or chips or what have you, maybe still providing that, but as on request. So instead of just resupplying that basket, then looking to their customers to talk about and request what they would like to see.
Interesting. And John?
I'd say, for our technology, actually depend, on a segment basis. I would start with like retail grocery and say, back to what I was just talking about, that on a big scale, we definitely see changes in production. I'm not sure if that affects situations where, people have self-serve options and they may still take, however many French fries they please. But on a broader scale, absolutely, we see reductions in kind of what's served. But to know, we work with pre-consumer food waste at this moment. So we definitely have more data on serving versus kind of what the plate size might look like, or kind of information that might be gathered after the consumer, eats the food or gets the plate. So I'd say that's the context I wanted to add there.
Lynn, you're muted still. And Corianne, you can put up your contact information because you're the presenter now, if you want to do that on the screen.
Sure, I'll pull up my.
Terry, do you hear me?
Now I can hear you, yeah.
So, John, I'm going to ask you a question, but I need you to think, well, not that you wouldn't think anyway, but this was a question that we were a little nervous about somebody coming up, which is, I don't want you just to do an advertisement, because the question is, what's the difference between you and LeanPath and Winnows? So I know there's differences, and if there's a way for you to do this without flat out advertisement, please do. Otherwise, do an advertisement.
Absolutely. So, I'll go, I think, just each company by company. I'll start with LeanPath. I'd definitely say that our computer vision is the core kind of offering and component for our source reduction and food waste reduction, as opposed to Lean Path offers kind of another non-AI centric, offering. We're more affordable, so we're priced kind of more competitively than both. So that's one, not to compare, not to advertise, but that is one of the differences as well. And then I would say the main difference, and this does apply to Winnow as well as Lean Path, is that our tabletop model really allows for donation and diversion opportunities, whereas kind of the process of tracking that occurs in other solutions means that they are still taking a kind of a holistic overview of what does ultimately go to the landfill, whereas we work to prioritize those kind of those other areas of the EPA hierarchy that were covered, such as food rescue and animal feed diversion, and kind of repurpose the food and give it a second life as well.
Great, thank
And
you.
then, yeah.
You keep going.
Lynn, I would note that we did, this is Terry, and I would note that we did originally invite Lean Path to participate in today's webinar, and for various reasons on their part, they declined that invitation. So we were hoping to have them present their own tool, and in fact, Numoa has worked with their tool, so it's not,
We're not anti-Lean.
we're not biased in that way.
Neither are we.
There you go.
And the last thing I was going to say too is just what I think separates us, specifically, in North America and in the United States, would be that we are definitely focused, on retail grocery and expanding there right now. We work across those industries that I mentioned, like hospitality and colleges and universities as well. But our technology is well suited and kind of deployed in retail grocery chains today. And so that's kind of a main differentiator for example, like Winnow.
Great, thank
and
you.
Lean Path, they work with food service and hospitality more.
Great, excellent answer. So we're nearing the end, but we do have time for a few more questions. I want to note that, as Terry said at the beginning, perhaps not everybody was here then, that the webinar recording and both John's and Corey Ann's PowerPoint presentations will be available on both the NERC and Numoa websites. So if you haven't captured their contact information or their URLs, you'll certainly see them there. We've had a couple of questions come in about the availability of case studies. And Corianne, I know that you noted that they were available on your website. So that's one place that people can access them. But if you have particular ones that you were willing to have Terry and I post along with the other webinar resources, you could send them to us and we would do that. Let's see. Another request for the John. I guess they didn't like me typing in your contact information. John, what is your email address?
Yes, my email address is john, John, at foodsolutions.com. That's PHOODSOLUTIONS.com.
Thank you.
John, if you want to put something up, I've made you the presenter, so you could flash up your slide with your contact.
Great, thank you.
Great, give me one quick second and I will do that.
Thank you. Terry, do you have any final comments you wanted to make? I don't see more questions coming in.
Well, one question that came in for Corianne is, do you offer your work in Canada? Do you guys go north?
Not yet.
Okay, not yet. Well, that's intriguing. You're considering it?
Well, no, more so in the US, but I'm always open and willing to having a conversation.
Okay, you wouldn't be adverse to traveling north, huh, to Canada?
My family's from Canada, so I have a personal interest for sure.
Great.
Okay.
Well, both of you did just a fabulous job, and congratulations on the outstanding work that you do as well in this important field. And Terry, I think you have the final word. So thank you everybody for being here.
So Lynn, you might want to mention the upcoming webinar that you've been putting together on contamination of food waste, right?
Sure.
Yeah, that's
Sure.
coming up. So
It is. So in June, we have a webinar, just looking at June 14th at 1 o'clock. We'll be having a webinar about avoiding contamination in food waste feedstock destined for composting. And you can find a link to that both on the NERC homepage and on NMOA's website. I have to admit, Terry, I'm not sure exactly. Is it on your homepage?
I don't know if we've posted it yet, but we
Okay, so go to
will.
my homepage, nerc.org. We also have a couple of other webinars coming up. They're not on food. They're on extended producer responsibility for gas cylinders, which is coming up just in a couple of weeks on May 3rd. And we also have one on purchasing standards for low carbon concrete on June 1st. Now, you don't eat either of those, but they're sure to be excellent webinars as well.
Well, gas cylinders are used to make foods, at least in
Oh,
many
there you
cases.
go. There you go.
Yeah, there's the connection. So thank you, everyone. This was great, and we got a lot of attaboys in the question boxes from the participants. You know, thanking you all for your presentations today. So much appreciated. And any final words, Lynn?
No, just thank you. That was fun.
Yeah, great.
Thanks
Okay,
so much.
take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
having
all.
us.